What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and today, here to talk about the treasure map preparation for the upcoming TM against Izo, starting February 15th at 1 AM PST time. So this treasure map, a lot of people had a lot of differing opinions as to which character it was going to be. It did end up being Izo. So before we jump into the breakdown of each of the fights in particular, we'll actually talk about the treasure map character that we're all going to be farming for. Let's see what this character is all about. So Izo, Dex, Shooter, Cerebral, Captain ability, 3.5 times attack to Shooter and Cerebral, 1.3 health, and damages all enemies for 5 times damage received from the enemy at the end of the turn. So this character is focused on taking damage, which is not the best mechanic to have in One Piece Treasure Cruise, unless if you have ways to supplement that. So the special of Izo will cut your crew's health by 70%, but then deals 50 times the damage lost in HP to all enemies, and then reduces the cooldowns of Dex, Shooter, and Cerebral characters by 1, and changes their block slots into matching, reduces 1 turn of barriers, and 6 turns of damage threshold. This is a pretty interesting special. It's not the most amazing special ever, but it does have some pretty key things that I do like. Self-health cutting is not very common, so always nice to have more characters that do that. Obviously, the best component of this character is the 6-turn removal of damage threshold. It's not very common that you get characters are able to do that. One thing that is kind of annoying though is that this character does have barrier pierce, and you need to be above 50% in order to get access to that, but then when you use the special, you cut your crew's health by 70%. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. This character was not built very well, honestly. And then you have the crewmate ability, which when this character does have a special that does do cooldown, you would hope that they have a special reverse crewmate. This character kind of does, but you have to take damage in order for you to actually get the cooldown reduction. And I'm pretty sure that this doesn't proc his effect to like give himself cooldown. Like, it just doesn't really work. Like, this character is a little janky. It does boost damage to strength enemies by 2.25. That's actually pretty good, but the crewmate ability just kind of sucks, unfortunately. Does have self cooldown at the start of the quest, which is actually pretty good. I do like that as well, but I just wish this character was built a little bit more effectively, honestly. Just the effect of this character just doesn't make sense. And then the rest of the Rumble kit, like, it's nothing really amazing here. Like, this character's not going to see play. A lot of free-to-play units in Rumble are pretty bad. So, unfortunately, Izo is not the best unit ever, but the 6-turn removal of Threshold is the key component here. The bottom of the screen here, you can see that they talk about the 6+ Super Evolution of Quick Final Tap Luffy. You can get 2 Super Evolution Skulls for Luffy, one at 1.5 million, the next one at 3 million points. So make sure to farm these up because you want to be super evolving that Luffy. The, what's he called? The Red Rock Luffy looks absolutely phenomenal. But with all of that, the rest of the information is pretty much the same. So let's go ahead and jump into each of these treasure map fights. The first fight versus Raizo, the first Battle Rush boss. Raizo gives cooldown to all units, but also gives 5 turns of reduction to Versus effect and Super Switches, and all the fights will be doing that. They give cooldown to Versus, Super Switch, and the base special cooldown, which is pretty interesting. Hopefully they continue to do that moving forward. The Battle 3 though, you've got 8 turns of Despair, 5 turns of an attack down based on your chain multiplier, but you also get given chain multiply growth rate reduction, so a lot of really annoying mechanics, as well as making all of your slots unfavorable, and as well as giving you 3 hits of hunger, and also having a perfect barrier. So for the first mini boss to have this many gimmicks is kind of alarming to see. We are using Luffy as the captain here. If you don't own your own Luffy, it's not the end of the world, but what it means is you do have to find other ways in order to deal with opposing hunger. You have to deal with hunger in some fashion, and Luffy is just one of the best ways to do that. Robin on this team is not really required. She's just a character that can give us more damage increase. Vivi's kind of cool, I guess, because she does remove the chain coefficient reduction, changes slots into recovery, and also gives you an attack buff. Luffy does have a better attack buff, but it is what it is. The Sanji on this team does give a chain lock, so that is one way to just completely ignore the chain multiplier growth rate, as well as the chained attack down. If you have a chain lock that is like 2.0 or higher, usually, you know, 2.5, like just a base 2.5 chain lock is going to be more than enough for this fight. And unfortunately, the enemy does have a lot of barriers, but unless if you hit those 3 perfects, you're not piercing that. So if you have characters that do have barrier pierce, this fight will be a lot easier for you. Moving on to the second fight versus Ashura Doji, I think this is going to be probably the more interesting fight in this entire treasure map because it really utilizes the previous treasure map character in Wiper. So if you hadn't picked it up, the Wiper character from the previous treasure map, this fight is going to be very difficult for you. But the way that it works is that there's cooldown for Dex, Quick, and Psi. So you want to be building a team around those colors, but you want to be using Wiper as the captain. It's actually very important that you actually do that. Now, when you reach Battle 3, there's going to be normal attacks only, but it is only for one turn, which is very important. Your captains are inflicted with Bind, there's going to be unfavorable slots, and then for 5 turns, all the type slots and tandem slots are badly matching to the crew. And what you do is you activate the special of Wiper. Now, Wiper has a really unique special in that it removes 5 turns of your slots being counted as unfavorable or matching. So you can remove all of those slots counted as badly matching, and then he also gets rid of all of your type slots and then changes the rest of them into tandem. So he removes the badly matching slots, you get a full board of tandem, they're treated as matching because he removes that debuff, and then you're good to go. He also gives a color affinity boost to Shooter and Free Spirit, which is why we have the team such as this, which is focusing on those classes. Now, we do also have Luffy for an attack buff, we've got the Sea Monster for an orb boost, and then we've got Adio from the Odyssey celebration to give us the removal of Bind on our captains, which is very, very important. And then what happens is when you kill Ashura Doji, all of your crewmates are inflicted with Bind and Special Bind. You are given unfavorable slots again. So what you would want to do is activate the second Wiper special if you have double Wiper as the captains, and that should enable you to kill Ashura Doji without too many issues. So a pretty interesting fight nonetheless. Moving on to the third Battle Rush boss, we have Denjiro, who once again gives cooldown to Quick, Dex, and Psi. And there is going to be a very, very interesting gimmick here where there are different preemptive effects that occur depending on what characters are on the team. So it mentions that if you have characters with cost of 41 or above on your crew, then you get one set of preemptives. But I think the additional preemptives will also occur. I'm not really too sure how this actually works, but either way, you want to be trying to build your team with no characters that exceed the cost of 40. So they really want you to go ahead and use Sugar here. Obviously, Sugar was a free character that you could get from completing the recent Pirate and Ball season, and she's really, really good for this, alongside the Kizuna Doflamingo, as you can use the Doflamingo special to remove attack down, and then when you use Sugar special to change everyone into toy soldiers, you can actually ignore the barrier, you can ignore the blindness, and ignore the paralysis that's inflicted to the team. And if you have Sugar with level limit break, and obviously with her super evolution, her special does get buffed where you get a full board of slots, you can get an attack buff, you've got her super type which can give you an orb boost. It's pretty effective, so Sugar and the Kizuna Dofi just single-handedly deal with this fight. Moving on to the final of the Battle Rush bosses is Kinemon, who is an int fight, and this time around, characters that are Free Spirit, Cerebral, and Slashers all receive Versus Effect, Super Swap, and Special Charge Time Reduction. Now, this fight, we are aiming to use Rayleigh and Gaban as the friend captain here, due to the fact that there are so many different gimmicks here. Like, honestly, this Kinemon fight is more difficult than the final fight versus Oden, which is kind of funny. But if you have Ray-Ban, you can completely ignore the attack down that's inflicted to the crew because they remove it in their captain ability. Additionally, there's going to be 7 turns of Special Bind inflicted to the crew, which you can get rid of with Rayleigh and Gaban with their swap effect, and also then using their special. And remember, if you do have their super swap, you'll actually get a chain buff as well, which is pretty cool. There's going to be lots of badly matching slots given to the crew, empty, block, and bomb. So we have the Bon Clay here, which is able to change them all into recovery, treats the matching as a captain. We have the Jinbei support to lock all our Free Spirit character slots, which Rayleigh and Gaban as a friend captain are also Free Spirits. And there's going to be Burn, and there's Resilience. We have the Brook here with double special launch to get rid of the Resilience. Actually, just noticed that the enemy actually already locks our slots for us, so we don't even need to use the Jinbei, which is perfect. That's actually amazing that that happens. And the Resilience, of course, we said with Brook. Luffy can give us an attack boost to side characters. Rayleigh and Gaban, we can super swap into Rayleigh, so he'll be a side character, which can work well with our crew. This team just works really, really well. Now what happens is when you kill the boss, he's going to heal to 50% and limit the amount of specials that you can use. Luffy's attack buff does last for 3 turns if I remember correctly, and then also we can have the super type of Bon Clay, which can give us a 3.25 times chain lock. So that's just additional ways to give us more damage buffs that we can carry over a different stage, which is kind of cool. Alright, so moving on to the final boss, which is Oden. We do have the Intrusion boss, which we'll talk about in just a moment, but Oden once again gives cooldown to Dex, Quick, and Psi characters, along with Versus Effect, Super Swap, and Special Charge. Now, Battle 2, there's going to be a 50% health cut given to the crew, there's delay immunity, 5 turns of attack down, 5 turns of resilience, and 5 turns of Rainbow Shield. Now, with this team, we are aiming to use a friend captain New Year's legend Nami. Now, the main reason why we want to use Nami is because her kit just deals with this fight almost single-handedly. She deals with lots of gimmicks on multiple stages. So Nami's special on stage 2 gets rid of the resilience and the Rainbow Shield, so you just have to deal with the attack down. Now, in this crew example, we're going to be using Brook to get around the attack down, which is actually pretty good. We can go ahead and switch it around so Brook gives us more matching slots. And then on Battle 3, what happens is you are inflicted with 5 turns of paralysis, and if you have Nami as a friend captain, she removes it and then allows her special to be ready once again. There is going to be 5 turns of increased defense, 1 turn of special reverse, delay immunity, and threshold. So once again, you can go ahead and use Nami's superclass to give you the ability to remove the threshold on the enemy side of the field, and then her special, because it's going to be fully charged because of the paralysis, will reduce all characters' cooldown. So you deal with the special reverse, and she also gives you the paralysis on the enemy. So Nami gives you everything on this fight. You do still have to remove the enemy's blue shield, which you can remove with Magellan on this team, because Magellan reduces enemies' defense to 0, which is perfect. And then, you know, the rest of the characters here are just for kind of stats and providing big buffs. So you've got color affinity with Koala, you've got Oden because he's a new unit and he's green, and he just synergizes with the squad, and then Luffy and Ace, which can give an attack buff and also a color affinity buff. But either way, this is actually a very easy final boss fight, which is good. I assume that due to the lack of gimmicks, the boss is probably going to have a lot of HP, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay, moving on to the Intrusion fight versus Izo. Remember that the Intrusion will only occur on secret maps every time that it comes around, so you don't actually have to fight this boss that often, but characters that are Free Spirit, Powerhouse, or Striker will receive cooldowns on all facets. So Battle 2, there's going to be delay immunity, end of turn damage, bind to the top row, crewmate paralysis, and then despair to the top row, and a full board of block slots. So the way that we're getting around those, we have Oden, which is able to change all the block slots in our crew. So Oden gives himself a Wano slot, and then everyone else gets a tandem slot, which is pretty sick. Then we will have Rayleigh support, which is able to remove 2 turns of bind, and it will remove 2 turns of the paralysis, and the despair will be completely removed. So after the Rayleigh support, we have to remove actually, no, Rayleigh actually does remove all the bind. Now that I'm looking at it, we'll just have to remove 1 turn of paralysis, which we can remove with the Nami special here, which is fantastic. And then we basically have everything that we want. Now, I don't know if I've stated it yet, but with this team, we are ideally using Rayleigh and Gaban once again as a friend captain, because they deal with everything on the final stage. And what I mean by that is that when you see the final stage, there's a lot of gimmicks that you have to take into consideration. So there is going to be 7 turns of special bind, and there is going to be an attack down based on your chain multiplier. And then you can see that you do need to have 2.5 chain or higher. And with the super swap of Rayleigh and Gaban, you can achieve that. So you want to be super swapping into the Gaban, who is the Dex character, and he'll have type advantage against Izo. His special will remove all the special bind and give you a very big orb boosting effect. And there is an interrupt if you activate a chain related buff, as they'll remove your beneficial effects and they'll blow away your crewmates and stuff like that, which is not fun. So you ideally have to have ways to get around that. And then as well, we will have the way to get around resilience is we have the Bone Kichi on the team, which is really solid, and he can also give us a conditional boost if the enemy didn't have resilience, which unfortunately he does, so that does kind of suck. And then we have the Wiper to give us some additional color affinity buffs. Luffy on the team is to remove the Rainbow Shield with his special and his super type or super class, whatever type of effector it is. You can remove the Rainbow Shield with his special, and there is a damage barrier, which is kind of annoying. So there's like a 10 million damage barrier, so that's like super frustrating. I don't know why they decided to do that. Just makes the boss that much more annoying to deal with. So yeah, I do think that Izo is going to be a very annoying boss to get around, because not only do you need Rayleigh and Gaban, in my opinion, in order to get around this a lot easier, there's also the death hit as well. So you need to remove 5 turns of increased damage taken in order to deal with that, because otherwise it's 50,000 damage, but then the increased damage taken is removed, does an additional 10 times, which means that you're actually taking 500,000 damage. And in this team composition here, Bone Kichi has an effect that says if the enemy is immune to all status effects, then he actually gives you a damage threshold reduction on your side of the field, where any damage that exceeds 3,000 is reduced significantly. Now, in my head, it seems okay, but considering the amount of damage you are going to take, I don't know if Bone Kichi's damage reduction is enough. But in theory, it should be enough. So we'll have to wait and see how that all pans out. So with all that being said, those are the teams that I have that are the quote-unquote accessible teams to take on this latest treasure map. So that's going to wrap it up for me. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.